Last year, summer in Maine was scorching. The parks seemed like the only escape from the heat. The air was thick with the scent of sun-baked asphalt and damp earth after a recent rain. The sun hung in the sky like a blazing orb. Even in the shade of the trees, there was no relief. The leaves drooped lifelessly from their branches. The parks became the only refuge. There, at least occasionally, a breeze would blow. I came here every evening and always stopped at the same spot. I sat on an old bench, its surface carved with the initials of someone's long-forgotten love. That's where I first saw her. She was sitting on a bench across from me. Her style was oddly old-fashioned, like something out of an early 20th century photograph. Lace cuffs, a high collar, the fabric slightly yellowed with age. Her black hair fell almost to her waist. She was reading. Her slender fingers turned the pages of a book bound in worn leather. I didn't want to disturb her. I just watched her profile, watched the way the sunset light brushed her pale, almost translucent skin. Then, suddenly, she looked up. No reason, no sound, as if she had felt my gaze. Her lips curved into a smile, not warm exactly, more curious than anything. "Do you often do that? Stare at strange girls?" she asked. Her voice was quiet but not timid. It reminded me of leaves rustling before a storm, soft but carrying a promise of something more. I mumbled something unintelligible. "My name is Lily," she said. The name struck a strange chord in me, like something I'd heard in a dream. As she spoke, I noticed her pupils were unusually wide. I looked away. When I glanced back, she was still smiling. Then she stood, walked over, and sat beside me on the bench. That's how it began. An encounter I would later deeply regret. Time slipped away from me. I didn't notice the sun sinking below the horizon, turning the pond into a wash of red. Her laugh was low and slightly raspy, vibrating in the air and leaving behind a faint echo. When I cracked another joke, she would cover her mouth with her hand. I could see her eyes squinting with genuine, almost childlike amusement. Sometimes her fingers would brush against mine. They were ice cold, like the touch of a December wind. I flinched, but didn't pull away. She carried a strange scent with her, a mix of fading roses and something metallic. As night fell, the streetlights flickered on one by one, casting long shadows across the ground. Our shadows stretched out beside us, but hers was different, thicker, more alive. Then, without warning, she leaned in close, very close, and I felt her breath on my cheek. It was cold. "Come to my place tomorrow," she whispered. "At exactly 10. I'll have a surprise ready." She reached into the little pocket of her dress and handed me a small scrap of paper. The handwriting was unnaturally perfect, each letter flawlessly formed, without the slightest flaw. It looked like it had been printed, not written. And yet it was clearly handwritten. Too perfect, too precise, almost inhuman. I hooked the note and accidentally cut my finger on the sharp edge of the paper. A tiny bead of blood surfaced on my skin. Lily immediately grabbed my hand and brought it to her lips. "Careful," she murmured, licking the drop away. Paper can be sharp. Later, I would realize that this single drop of blood had bound us together. By now, it was fully dark. She stood up, took a few steps toward a shadowy path, and disappeared into the darkness, leaving behind only a whisper, one I could still hear inside my head. Exactly at 10. The next day, I finished work early, and instead of going to the park to my favorite bench, I headed to Lilia's place. I was supposed to arrive at 10, but I decided to come early and wait outside her house. The street was deserted, and her house looked old. I noticed there were no lights on in the windows. Maybe she wasn't home? Strange, I thought. Wasn't she expecting me? I hesitated, then decided to check. The gate was open, so I walked across the yard toward the house. Near the door was a narrow window. I peeked inside. It was dark. However, then I heard footsteps from within. I squinted and saw a faint candle glow deep in the hallway. And then I saw her, Lily, standing in the middle of the room. However, it wasn't the girl from the park I'd met the day before. The candlelight grew brighter and I saw something off. Her skin was white, paper white, Her eyes were pitch black without whites. She was eating something. Something red, wet, it looked like raw meat. She held it in her hand, and for a moment I have sworn it was a heart. She turned her head toward me, too quickly. Her neck bent at an unnatural angle. Her black eyes, now completely filling their sockets, locked onto mine through the dusty window. Her lips stretched into a smile, revealing a row of teeth that were far too straight and far too sharp.
You came early.
The voice didn't come from inside the house. It came from inside my head. My ears rang and my chest tightened so hard I could barely breathe. Panic took over. I bolted. My legs buckled at first, but adrenaline pushed me forward. Behind me, I heard a sharp crack. Maybe a branch, maybe bones. I didn't look back. My heart was pounding so hard it felt like it would burst through my ribs. I ran for the gate, for the street, feeling someone, breathing down my neck. I reached my car, parked just outside Lily's yard. I threw myself into the driver's seat, slammed the door shut, and tore out of there. On the way home, I could still hear her voice, and that strange, broken laughter. It's been a month since that night. I moved to another state, a city where no one knows me, changed my phone number. However, it didn't help. I keep having the same dream. I'm standing in a dark park, where the street lamps flicker like distant stars. The bench, the same old one with the carved initials, is empty. However, I know it won't be for long. Then she appears. The girl in the white dress walks slowly toward me. Her feet leave no prints on the damp grass. The dress is stained now, blotched with dark, rusty patches, but she's still smiling. "You ran, but I'll find you anyway," she whispers. Her voice no longer belongs to dreams alone. Sometimes I hear it in my head, sometimes in my room. I wake up drenched in cold sweat. However, the nightmare doesn't end. One morning I woke up to find a piece of paper on my desk. The same kind of paper Lily gave me when we first met. Same size, same sharp edges. It had her address on it, and a time, 7 p.m., written in that same flawless, inhuman handwriting. However, the most terrifying part was the new line at the bottom, one that hadn't been there before. "I'm already on my way.